Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at together, this image that I have chosen, you can see up the top here, I've taken a screenshot. It's from MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, so we automatically know that it's a respected and authoritative source for both information and imagery. So the first thing I want to show you is some information that we've been able to collect about the piece that we're looking at. The title is In Memorial of Karl Liebknecht, which the first thing we can look at is that the title might tell us a little bit about what we can know about the subject matter or the theme or the message of the artwork. So the first thing I would do is research who Karl Liebknecht is, and I'm able to do that. And then I'm able to find out who he was and what the piece might be about. And understanding that background can also help me know why the artist might have done it. So on researching Karl Liebknecht, which we're going to assume is this guy here, we can see that he is in memoriam, means that we're remembering him after he's passed. When you research him, I'm able to find out that he was a communist leader, and in actual fact his family asked her to create this piece to celebrate his life. And she didn't necessarily agree with his ideology, but she had heard him speak once and believed that he was a charismatic leader, even if she didn't completely agree. So the other things that are really interesting that we can have a look down here, because it's MoMA, we know that it's curated by someone who's an authority or knowledgeable, and we can see there are some particular themes. Post-war politics, we're able to see what kind of technique it is, we're able to see who the artist is, and that there, if you click on this link on the website, there are in fact other works for the artist that are listed in the MoMA. And we can see also up here there is a slideshow. We can see the edition. That's really interesting in terms of printmaking. Edition is literally the number of prints the artist made with this block or with this image. And they're usually valuable because they're limited. So they're a little bit less valuable than paintings because you can print, for instance, there's 100 and they're numbered. So we know that if you bought one, it would tell you that there were only ever 100 made. This tells you the size, the year it was made in. All right, so we know historically that this is just after the end of World War I. Okay. Okay, so if we now go to the actual composition, there's a few things that I immediately notice when I look at it. First of all, the imagery seems to be kind of separated into three parts in terms of colour and subject matter and density. So first of all, I'm looking at this section here, and then there's a different section that I can kind of see as the colours get more dense and less detailed, and then here there's a distinct contrast. There's definitely more white than there is the black. So you can see it's definitely more dense here with lots of cuts and lots of detail, getting less dense, and then more of the opposite, the contrasting white. And what's interesting is if I look at this piece, it kind of also reminds me of other possible religious adoration pieces, like from churches where people are lamenting over someone who's passed. This section here, kind of like the white part around it, it adds contrast. It's a distinct contrast to his face. His face is dark. And then you can see here this is much lighter. It's almost like a halo. So there's some kind of callback or throwback to other religious compositions. Here, what's interesting, if we now talk about the actual composition, there's lots of overlapping here in this section. You can see here that these images and these people are overlapped. It's indicative of lots of people mourning him. There's some interesting aspects in terms of the faces, like this person looking at the gauntness of his cheeks, he definitely looks like he is slightly unhealthy, or these people don't look completely healthy. They look like they're starving, basically. You can see that a mother is here. She's in direct contrast to what look like mostly male figures around, and she's holding the baby. The baby is looking towards him. Then we've got two people closer. There's a lot of white going on, in the faces up here, and then there's a lot less here, and then they're darker figures, which again we've commented contrast here between the black and white. What's really interesting in this piece too is it's typical Käthe Kollwitz printmaking. There's lots of directional lines, and there are lots of hatching and cross, like lots of texture. So if we zoom in on this piece here, and this section here, you can actually see that the artist is creating a sense of cultural ruggedness around the faces here. Look at these, they're not smooth, there's like a ruggedness to the cuts, which is typical of expressionist printmaking. If we go back to our pencil here, we can see, I'm going to change the colour here, you can see directional lines in the shading. This section here is interesting. If you read the media for this piece, this is actually, she's put ink on top of this, so you can see that these are finer lines. They're not as distinct and white as these actual cuts into the wood surface. She's worked over the top of the print. Okay, so some typical elements also of Käthe Kollwitz that we can see is around here. She often has enlarged hands in her composition whenever she has hands, and some say that is attributed towards her, what they might say is Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which is a suspected syndrome that people have because of Käthe Kollwitz, because her proportion of hands is larger than what would be natural. So if we look here and here, they're all much larger. And then also the typical contrast, the very flat colour down here, the contrasting white with the strong contrasting, all two sections together. With typical woodcuts, we can see that shapes are simplified. They're still fairly detailed, but if you look here, it's a very simplified shape, which suggests the facial features of the people. There's rough texture going on here, and everywhere you can see these lines almost seem quickly done and rushed. And then there's lines that are contrasting with these lines here against, because they're against the dark contrast of the figure here, they're almost leading us up, as though maybe the life force of this person is leaving. The person itself, Karl Liebknecht, is also in white, possibly symbolizing his desire for like his higher nature, like his desire for a better place, and his idealism in terms of communism. Again, just to repeat, she didn't necessarily agree with it. She was asked to do this portrait, so she probably is going to present him in a good light as well. So understanding the purpose of the artwork also helps. And it didn't take very long to look it up, but the title will also tell you and give you a clue about what you can look at.